Sunday, January the 29th, 2023, number 3,849. He's but a whimper of who he once was, is what this is called. It's a longer one. We're working our way up to number one in Billboard's list of 10 greatest fears of all time. It's a hot 100 degrees Fahrenheit out in the city today. On a more serious note, isn't it a damn shame what happened to Casey Kasem? And I concur, knowing that's why I haven't even gone home for a funeral. At least not my little brother's a decade or so ago. And if my mom goes before me, I'm pretty sure I'll do the same, which is to celebrate her life in my own private way, here in this city to which I ran away from home, albeit circuitously, arriving over 22 years ago. And sure, I despise my family politics and bickering and greed that shines brightest in families around funeral times. That's a beacon I'd truly rather just avoid. But is that the real reason I wouldn't go back? Haven't in over a dozen years now. I did get my siblings, well, one afforded his own, but I treated the other two tickets to come visit me after Gary's first scare, or was it his second? That few days together, the four of us were divine, just the best. A couple of years later, no less, and Gary passed, asphyxiated in his truck after passing out in it late one evening after he'd said he was taking off. The story goes that he was obviously too drunk to drive, and so my uncle or cousin or some relative he had been spending his time at Aunt Patty's in Missouri was having none of that, connived the keys from him as each of the adult family members made their ways to wherever work was with all of the kids, who were no doubt dropped off at school. And so Gary, in the truck with no keys, rolled up the windows, fell asleep or passed out, and was gone by the time folks started arriving back home from their various jobs and schools. Maybe I've embellished this a bit, but the truth is I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. All I know is that he left this life. I was very sad, knowing that one of my little brothers was gone so soon, but also happier than ever that I had gotten us all together in San Francisco for those few days a couple of years previous. At that time, I certainly didn't have the means to get back to Arkansas. That was the beginning of what I hope I'm approaching the end of, the most difficult years of my life. Which included a surprise disappearance by a partner of 10 years. A long bout with a grief so huge that it could be characterized as an overly long illness, which was followed by a great chasm of depression or a continuation of the overly long illness. An eviction, 2 years of homelessness, 6 months of which I was working while literally living in the streets, the other year and a half of which I lived in a hotel of 2 shelters and with help from a therapist just to get a roof over my head, a brief stint at a rehab facility before finally transitioning back into the shelter, the only one in which one might stay within nearly 24/7, except for the one day of the month when pest control comes. I had left thinking I had a place to stay and a job. The job remained. The place to stay retracted their offer when they found out I'd been evicted, and this was an SRO, hence the necessity of living on the streets while holding the cubicle job best I could for the duration of its 6-month contract. And then finally, transitioning into a home of my own after I had been unhoused almost 2 full years in the place where I now type this up to toss into the wind in hopes it will get to you. I've been 4 years here, but I should be in a better place soon, and I am. There are plans in the works and hopefully a domino effect of good news that will follow after that happens. But now, I'm sitting here in a bit of limbo, a limbo in which I've become so familiar, knowing how to sort of ease time along to keep myself from going totally stir crazy. The limbo was brought about by a sprained knee, and is it ever painful? I only sprained it a week ago, though, cleaning my apartment, of all things. Oh, the stuff I'm leaving out of the story, which would make this sound so horribly tragic. I was cleaning roaches off of the top of my closet. But indeed, it's such a normal story these days, and I'm one of the lucky ones thus far, which is hard for me to fathom as the obstacles have been so overwhelming in getting to here from there that I find myself amazed all too often, wondering how anyone does this, and thankful for what I do have, what I have had, and what I will have, etc. It seems almost as if this took a wrong turn somewhere, but actually, now that I look back up at where we've been thus far, this is probably where I meant to go tonight. And I just skimmed the surface, like I said, because who'd believe me? Because it's too depressing or tragic sounding. I don't know for sure. This is more than I usually tell these days, and you're pretty much all I have to share with at present, and well, for quite some time now. But one thing seems finally all but certain, and that is that my near decade in the trenches is soon coming to a close. It refuses to go swiftly and silently, continuing to create these annoying obstacles even at this late date, years later. But I assure you, unless something so unexpected that it doesn't even bear mentioning, I'm about to be back in more familiar and more economically and socially feasible territory again. I was, and then I'm not, but I'm still better. Anyway, and while I've always held on to such hope, and perhaps have painted such a picture once or twice before over the years, this time, I mean, sure, I'm a bit melancholy here by myself on a Saturday night, and I've come out surely as objective as someone like me can be, a better person through this hellish set of trials and ridiculousness. And I have a few things to show for it, but just you wait. I wonder, though, who'll be around when I do finally make my way back to the old familiar life, or will it be familiar? And will any of you even recognize me? If not, it's probably for the better. Who's lucky enough for such a fresh start again anyway?